because it's a training mission. Wow, 107 viewers. I think this is a record for this channel. I think this is the most viewers ever. Okay, so this mission we're going to go over fire support and information sharing and communication links. So this is actually one of the most important lessons in the game, even though it's one of the more abstract ones. Okay, so as you can see, this is at night. Units are going to spot a lot less at night because, you know, it's night and dark is hard to see through. By the way, just a quick heads up, if you can't see well in the game, you can actually turn the brightness up. It won't affect anything in the game like unit spotting or anything. It'll just make it easier for you personally to see. Hit Alt-B, it'll turn artificially bright night graphics on. And that'll brighten things up, it'll make it easier for you to see. So just Alt-B, flip it on and off. Alright, first thing we're going to go through, spotting and contacts. So we've already seen these enemy icons popping up, and you guys are probably wondering what the deal is with them. So you can see that these guys here, they're kind of faded out a little bit, they're a little bit gray, and they got a question mark over them. These are contacts. This means that our units think that something is there. They're not quite sure, they don't actually have eyes on it, but they think something's there. And in this case, you'll notice that the scenario hasn't even started yet, and I've already got some contacts here. This is called pre-battle intelligence, and some missions will have these. It's up to the scenario designer whether they have them or not, and it'll randomly select some enemy units to already have contacts there. And that means you know that there's some enemy units in this area. And whether this is there or not is completely up to the scenario designer. Some scenarios will have it, some won't. How many of the enemy units are pre-spotted is also up to the scenario designer. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and advance one turn. We've got some Ukrainian guys here sitting at the firing line. These guys have no night vision systems at all. They have to rely on the Mark I eyeball to spot stuff. And it isn't night, so it's hard for them to see. So as we let the turn advance, they're spotting nothing. If you look down at their ground, you'll see they've got a berm level here, so they can't see the stuff out on the firing range there. Still nothing. We're going to go ahead and advance through the turn a little bit. So they see nothing on this firing range. Spoiler alert, there is stuff on the firing range. They just don't see it. Now, we're going to demonstrate how useful night vision is. Here we are with some US troops, some recon troops. They have ANPSQ-20 thermal night vision goggles. These combine night vision and thermal vision. If you haven't seen these on YouTube, you really need to look it up. The ANPSQ-20 is amazing. You should look up some videos of what it looks like looking through them. They fuse night vision and thermal technology. It's really cool. And they've also got, some of them also have thermal night vision sights on their rifles. So these guys can spot really well at night compared to the Ukrainians that have no night vision. So we're going to run them up to the Ukrainians. We're going to have them join them on the firing line. We're going to just fast forward through this. Alright, so you notice that almost immediately they start spotting enemy targets and engaging. This is a clear example of how useful night vision is at night. I have a question, guys, actually for you. How easily can you see? Because I know that the view on my screen is probably slightly different on yours. Let me know if I need to turn on the artificial brightness. Okay, so here's the cool thing. These guys can see these targets, right? They are within earshot of the Ukrainian guys, right? They're right next to them. Now if we click on the Ukrainian guys, you'll notice I got a bunch of contacts. They're actually sharing information. They're not going to make the Ukrainian guys spot the targets automatically, but they will make it easier. Alright, I'm going to turn on the artificial brightness graphics. Just keep in mind this is at night and it's a lot darker than it looks. So these guys can actually now have an idea of where the enemy is due to information sharing. The scout team is actually sharing their spotting information with the Ukrainians. So now, if these guys move around and stuff, the Ukrainians are going to have an easier time spotting them. They'll also have an easier time spotting them if they were to start shooting, because muzzle flashes are very bright. So that makes it a lot easier also for them to be spotted. But since they're not returning fire, it's a lot harder to see them. So contacts, let's go back to contacts. So this is a spotted unit, okay? I can select it, you can see something about it, we can actually see a unit on the battlefield, we get an idea of what's there, that sort of thing. I can actually select the unit, so this is a contact. That's actually a spotted unit on the battlefield. It has a floating icon I can select. There's some information about it down in the unit information panel. However, if I select on the Ukrainians, I have just a contact. It's just this nebulous icon that's like, maybe something's there? So, a unit might be there or might not be there. Obviously, I know something there is now. Icon can also be the last known location a unit was seen, so it might not actually be there anymore if it moves somewhere else. The opacity of the icon dictates how recent the contact was and how strong of a read it is. You'll notice that these icons back here are starting to fade out. That means that our units are less certain that there's something there. Whereas these ones are very bright, which means that they're certain that something's there. But over here, they're kind of not as opaque, because it's been a while since we've had those contacts, and they're not quite sure whether they're there or not. Something else you'll see in scenarios, I don't actually have a demonstration of it here, is these will also serve as sound contacts. If, like, your infantry are sitting in a forest and they hear a tank driving nearby on the road, you'll actually see this icon here, this contact icon, you'll actually see it moving across the map. And that's an indication that they hear something over there moving around. So for those of you completely new to Combat Mission, this also demonstrates something that is very integral to Combat Mission, and that is relative spotting. Each unit has to spot its own targets. In fact, every soldier in the unit, and in the vehicle, every crewman in the vehicle has to spot the target on its own to engage it. Unlike most games where once you see an enemy unit, everything that can attack it will attack it. In this case, every single unit has to do its own spotting. It has to see it itself. And that is strengthened when the ability for units to share that information strengthens the ability for all those units to engage a single target as quickly as possible. So that's where things like radio contact and stuff comes in handy, which we'll get into momentarily with communication links. So the best way to tell what a unit can see is to just click on the unit icon. You notice if I click between the Ukrainian squad and the American scout team, what they can see on the battlefield changes, because it's telling you what that unit sees. That's that unit's perspective of the battlefield. And then if I don't have anything selected, it actually just shows the sum total of everything that my units can see. But you should never assume that just because you've seen something on the battlefield that any specific unit you can see it. And the game does simulate units turning around and looking. You know, they'll look behind them, they'll look to their sides, they'll get distracted by things, and they might not see something right in front of them because they're distracted by something else. So it's all a little bit chaotic in that sense. You know, you don't always have complete control over what they're seeing or how they're looking at things. And Matt, aka Gunnersman, always brings up an excellent point. Even if you can't see the enemy unit, but you know it's there, just use area fire, like I'll do now. The Ukrainians will start engaging. They're not going to shoot right at some Russians, they're just going to spread the fire around, but they will start shooting at the area. So that's a good way to get some use out of your guys, even if they can't see a target. Rocco actually has a very interesting question. Does the game assume that the Ukrainians speak English? We assume that they can communicate with each other without any language barriers. To do otherwise is just... yeah, that's kind of tricky. Okay, so we're going to do another demonstration night vision systems. We have up here in Tower OP1, we have an HQ team. They don't have any thermal optics on their weapons. They do have some thermal night vision goggles, but those aren't as good as the rifle-mounted ones. Currently, they can see 3 tanks out on the battlefield here. The range is 500 meters. Best way to tell range is to press target and then just wave the range thing around. Wherever you're aiming at, it'll tell you the range to it. So they're at about 500 meters. That's all they can see. There might be other stuff out here, right? Right past those tanks. So we're going to pick the sniper team. They have the crosshairs. Snipers are typically armed with some really powerful optics, like these night vision systems. They really have powerful night vision systems. So for example, the M110 guy has a clip-on night vision sight in front of his scope, whereas this guy here is armed with a 50 caliber sniper rifle and he's got a heavy weapon thermal sight on. Very powerful spotting system. We're going to bring them up to the roof. That Panzer answered my question, so there you go. Yep, the yellow thing means not enough room.
Contact. Enemy armor. Check. Tank.
So we're going to bring these guys up. We'll go ahead and skip forward a turn, just let them get up there and get spotting at stuff. So, you notice immediately as soon as they got up there, all of a sudden I can spot a whole bunch more stuff. Look how further they can see. That is the power of that heavy weapon thermal sight at work. It can see way further. That's out to almost 2,000 meters. We've spotted all these vehicles out here. And then if I click the HQ, notice all of a sudden they've got a whole bunch more contacts popped up here because that sniper team is sharing the information with them. And now here's the fun part. So, these guys can obviously share information because they are right next to each other. You know, they can talk to each other. However, they also have a communications link with this recon teams over here. So if I select one of these recon teams, boom, look at that. Now they've got a whole bunch more spotting icons over here, and they don't even have line of sight to this area. They know that something's out there because they're being told that over the radio net or over the digital communication system. So the way you check out communications links is you go down here to the unit info panel. It's right down here. These three squares right here represent the different types of communication links. So, for example, you can look these up, by the way, in the icon and reference chapter at the end of the manual. So, for example, down here we've got these guys. This is verbal right here. It means they can actually talk to their leader. They can speak to the guy who's in their chain of command. This is hand signals. Over here we've got a scout team with right over here. This third one is satellite communication systems. In this case, it's a PDA. It means they can digitally share information with each other. It's probably the most powerful distant communication method, short of actually being able to talk to someone. And then this icon here is radio contact. The more forms of contact you have with your chain of command, the stronger the command link, the faster information can be shared. By the way, you can also check how the links are by hitting Alt-Z. It brings a red line up, and it links to their HQ. So this is the guy who is their commander, and he's got a red link to each of his subordinate units. Bright red means a very excellent command, very excellent contact. In this case, he's usually got multiple forms of contact with his subordinates. And then over here you get some links with their higher HQs. So for example, this is the Sniper Section HQ. He answers to the headquarters company. Green circle means he has an active command link with him, and these are the forms of the command link he has with him, these 3 forms. He's got all 3 forms right here. And then headquarters company answers to 1st Battalion. Green circle, he's got an HQ link with battalion headquarters, and then battalion headquarters can share that information with all the other units in the battalion. And all that basically is information flowing as long as those command links are established. These guys are sharing this spotting information around the battlefield. And that's going to help units spot things more easily and act on information. It's also going to affect morale. Units are higher in morale and do their jobs better when they're in contact with their HQs. And the exact mechanics of how that works are purposely left mysterious. You should just follow the general rule of thumb of keep your guys in contact. And that's not usually too hard in modern days since there's so many communication systems around. So the basic rule of thumb is try and keep your guys in contact, in multiple forms of contact. If possible, try and keep them within visual sight or even yelling range of each other, because that's the